Right, so remember in 2022, oil got to be around like $4.50 a gallon. It got like extremely abnormally bad.
Well, I mean, even right now, I think I passed the gas station. I drive a Tesla. I'm not bragging. I do. So I don't really pay attention to gas very often. And I went and I filled up my Jeep the other day because my wife needed to borrow it. And it was like $70 to fill up my Jeep. And I went, how expensive is gas? And then I looked at the sign. It was $3.60.
Yeah.
And I went, that's not nearly as high as I remember it being. How much was I spending 2 years ago when I would fill up that Jeep?
2022, it peaked. It was around like $4.50, $4.70, and in California, it got all the way up to $7. But then, you know, Biden was worried about the midterm, so he drained our strategic petroleum reserve, which, you know, today I'm bringing this up because he did another 1 million barrels yesterday to get ahead of the 4th of July because oil's been creeping back up. But go to this next chart and you could see the drastic impact. So the red line at the bottom is the rate of change for our strategic petroleum reserve. This is from Zero Hedge. Then that line at the top is the total amount inside of our strategic petroleum reserve. So this is for emergencies and power outages. Like it's our last reserve.
Okay, I hear Joe Biden's lowering oil prices. I go, cool. All right, gas is going to be cheaper.
Yeah.
The problem with that is what you're trying to explain right now, right?
Yeah,
so anybody that's like, oh, okay, yeah, good, lower those prices, Biden. Why is that bad?
Because the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, is for emergency situations in which we suddenly lose access to oil. We have a war that breaks out, and we need to fuel our military fleet.
Well, there's only like 4 of them ongoing right now, global conflicts that we're somewhat involved in proxy wars.
All of them threatening to come here.
No worries.
So this is supposed to be like the last reserve that you don't touch, that you don't even look at, you don't even think about until it's an absolute emergency. But he used it for political reasons. Now it's empty. And now he's going into spots that like aren't even the main one, and he's draining those. So he did another 1 million barrels this past week to get ahead of 4th of July because it always picks up during the summer.
Do you remember when we did the episode with Pat about the oil and there was only 40 years left of oil in the world at the current rate we're using it?
Yep.
What does this do now?
But that's at the current rate. Hold on, but that's at the current rate that we're using it.
That's also allegedly.
If he's escalating it and lowering, if Biden's escalating it in America, which uses a lot of freaking gas and is lowering prices, making it more available, we use it more, how will that affect the...
Well, I mean, that's ultimately, I feel like it's a drop in the bucket compared to the long-term thing. It's just more frightening from like a geopolitical standpoint where it's like, you know, it's imagine if we didn't have any ammo left and we're like on the brink of potential war, you know? Like,
hold on, but didn't you say that we're at like a few weeks ago, we did an episode where you talked about the shortage of ammunition that's going on in the country. So we are already short on weapons.
Yes, very much so.
And we're also short on, because you look at the recruitment numbers for the military and they are down as well. So we're short on people to fight and weapons for them to fight with, and now we're going to be depleted of gasoline to fill the vehicles to go fight.
And this is the problem with printing money too, because, you know, yes, we're the reserve currency, we could print money at will and everybody will buy our bonds, but you can't produce weapons and oil and people at the same rate as you can produce new money. So that's where the chickens come home to roost finally. Sorry,
also, to clarify, with the 1 million barrels he just sold off, that's like enough for America's current rate of fuel consumption for like 2.5 days.
Yeah.
Like I think the strategic reserve he just emptied, it's like 42 million gallons or something. Like each barrel is 42 gallons. So that's, you know, 42 times a million. So 42 million gallons. That's what the entire country consumes in like 2 to 3 days. So it's not going to be that.
It's just to help
it's just to help a little bit.
Or the 42, like you're saying, like the one that you just did yesterday.
Yeah, the one he just did yesterday.
Yeah, it's a small amount.
It's barely anything, and it's going to drop.
He's grabbing the scraps there because he already did the big one. The big one was like would last us a few weeks, but you know, dumping all that on the market's a big deal.
It's going to drop gas by just a couple cents. They're going to make 125 billion off of it, I believe.
Meanwhile, we're more vulnerable.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we can't fuel our jets if we ever had to scramble them to defend our country. But, you know, this kind of goes into the fact that, like, we're putting ourselves in this delicate situation where we don't have to, because he's the one who said that we can't do the Keystone Pipeline, we can't do fracking, and this energy thing is ridiculous in the first place because for political reasons, we're ignoring things like nuclear energy and then the hidden technology that we talked about already a few weeks ago. So, you know, we're putting ourselves in a vulnerable situation, like, for the sake of what their political agenda.
It sounds selfish to me. Like this was for safety and just so that gas isn't so expensive and you look better politically, you're going to deplete something that was for security.
But you're not even like, honestly, that it's going to make zero effect on my life what he's doing. And I feel like this is such a small, you said small drop in the bucket. Like, there's so many other issues that you could be working on that people would pay attention to and notice. This is not the one, right? Like, my insurance, my car insurance went up $400 for my 6-month premium for my Tesla and $100 for my 6-month premium on my Jeep, which means I'm going to be spending between $500 and $600 more every 6 months now for my car insurance, right? My groceries are up 33%.
Yep.
Gas, okay, yes, it's through the roof. People can't even afford their fucking mortgages right now.
Yeah.
My interest rate on my home is 6.5%. I'm not going to be able to refinance that for 3 years if they even do rate cuts, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Which at this point, we're talking about not even doing them in 2024.
Well, because the government keeps screwing up their rate cuts. Like, they jacked up rate cuts at the fastest rate in 30 years, but the government's still been doing $1.7 trillion deficit spending every year, which is undermining the rate increases. So they're doing it for nothing. They're running in place.
Because they keep spending on fucking Ukraine.
So, okay, here's the problem. So I'm a guy that has, my wife and I both work. My wife works from home. We're a dual income family.
Yep.
Outside of my job here, I've got a few side hustles. I do well, right? I do really well for my limited intellect and my looks. I do really well. How, like, I'm not struggling to get by, but I'm at the point where I'm like, man, just imagine how much better my life would be if I wasn't spending 33% more every time I go to the grocery store. Just think of how much better my life would be if my insurance hadn't gone up, how much more money I'd be saving for the future for my children. I'm a guy that's got multiple streams of revenue. How are people who only work one job surviving? How is that even possible right now?
Well, that's why the average person isn't moving out of their parents' house till like age 32 now, you know, and that's why there's all this like socialist crap kicking around young people. Of course, they're furious because it takes 8 years of an average salary to buy an average priced house right now. It took 2 years of an average salary to buy an average priced house in the 70s, and people who are, you know, older are saying like, oh, what are kids complaining about? It's like that exactly.
Well, and look, it's my fault that I bought at a 6.5% interest rate, but I have good credit. I bought at the top of the market at the time. At that point, they were like, well, interest rates can't go any higher, but I had to move. I had to buy a home for my family. Right now, my mortgage, I have no problem saying this, $2,800 a month. You know how much actually goes to the principal? $425.
Oh,
Me and my
God.
buddy actually calculated, I'm going to spend $600,000 in interest by the time my $420,000 home is paid off.
Wow.
That's an insane, the house is now, I spent over $1 million. And what do I have to show for it? A 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom bath in Lake Worth, Florida. So, like, it's not like, and again, I'm a guy that's doing well, and I am at the point where I'm questioning how other people can even, like when McDonald's is $20. We had a deli, one of the video editors went to Chick-fil-A today, came back, and he had a sandwich, a drink, and a mac and cheese. And I said, and fries. I said, Deli, how much did that cost you? $22. Like, how are people, and the thing is, people like Deli are going and spending it. But I know Deli doesn't have the money to spend $22 every day for 30 days out of a month
That's
to
just
go
one
and purchase.
meal, by the way.
One meal.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the days when I first started driving. I sound like my dad. And I love him. But I remember the day, like when I got my license, gas was $1.25. I remember it went to $2, and I went, this is insanity. Like, now we're talking about $4 gas, and it's not even an issue for some people. I look at, to go out and have a meal with my family, right? It used to be, we could, I took my son out to go to Olive Garden. We like to go, just me and my 14-year-old. Every couple of months, I just like to go and take him and talk about life and how things are. The last time that we went for a meal for 2 people at the Olive Garden, not even good food. It was $70. I didn't drink. I had a meal, an appetizer, and he had a meal. $70 for 2. So if I wanted to take my wife and my other son with us, we're looking at $150, $200 meal with tip included.
Wow.
How is that? And then I look around. I go, how are people still spending this money? Where is this money coming from? How are people affording to eat?
Credit cards.
Buy now, pay later.
Yes.
Buy now, pay later. And then it's all going to come back to them. And as they were saying on the PBD podcast last week, it's going to lead to a fire sale where people will start selling off all their assets. And I have something I read to Rob before the show. We were talking about this. This is an old 4chan post, believe it or not, from Twitter from 2013.
Okay.
Someone found this and posted it, and it predicts everything about our lives now. it says there will be no collapse the way some of these people think of it. It's not going to be like the movie Dawn of the Dead or whatever, where one day suddenly shit hits the fan and prices skyrocket and everyone begins to riot. There will be no happening. It's far more insidious than that. Read the poem The Hollow Men by T.S. Eliot and you'll understand. You'll just notice that every day, simple things will become a little bit more expensive. Everyone's homes and apartments will start to get smaller. Your work hours will get longer, but your pay will decrease. You'll see family and friends less and find that in time you care less about them. Every day you'll find yourself lowering your standards for everything, work, food, relationships, etc. Job security will no longer exist as a concept. You'll notice houses and apartments shrinking. People will start hanging on to clothing longer and longer. Less people will get married. Even less will have children. People will engross themselves in technological distractions, and fantasy while never experiencing the real world. That is the collapse. The reduction of the American man into a feudal serf, incapable of feeling love or hate, incapable of seeing the pitiful nature of his situation for what it is or recognizing his own self-worth.
Well, that goes back to almost everything.
That's from 2013.
And that's what every single person here has talked about in some aspect today,
Yes.
right? You've talked about but we've all talked about the degradation of culture, right? The demasculinization of men. All of these issues seem to play into one direction that seems to already have happened.
Becoming a serf. Yeah, becoming
Oh my
somebody who
God.
owns nothing and is happy.
Yep.
Someone who should be content with their lot. And actually, you know, maybe the past wasn't even that good to begin with. They start gaslighting you, telling you, you know, well, the past, there were all these problems. There was like discrimination and all this. But it's like, no, I remember in a time when I was alive, so like not when, you know, before the Civil Rights Act or whatever, where things were, we both had rights and things were cheap. It's not like we have to have one or the other. It's like, no, we can actually say sometimes the past was better. Like you were just saying, I remember my parents complaining that McDonald's was $20 for 4 people. They were complaining about it being $20 for 4 people. And you just said deli bought Chick-fil-A and it was $20 for one person. And that's like, I'm not that old. So it's like, what the hell? You know, like life
How is it
used to be
falling
better
so fast?
not that long ago.
Well, Rob
because
talked
of the
about
printing of money.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Rob talked about like, oh, when I started driving, you could get gas for $1.50. But you want to know the other time when gas was close to $1.50, like between $1.50 and $2 a gallon? 4 years ago, under Donald Trump in certain parts of the country.
Yeah.
Like, that was not that long ago. And like Shane said, they want you to look at the past and think that even when things look good, it was actually terrible. Look at the 50s when you could afford a 3-bedroom household with a white picket fence and the dog and 2 cars on a single income while the mom stayed home to do stuff with the kids. But they want to tell you, yeah, like they were racist and everybody was secretly gay. So that's why it's better now.
Well, they simultaneously started the whole women movement where they encouraged women to start working and stuff while they took us off the gold standard. So, and you know, I'm totally fine with taking us off the gold standard because I know we have to grow the economy. But if you're going to start deficit spending, you better send that after good investments to have a good ROI. But we waste money on bullshit and we don't actually drive down the price of basic things that we need. So, food, housing, energy, those things should all be dirt cheap, and that would impact the price of everything. You know, if energy was abundant, clean, free, if or almost free, if food, it would make food abundant and you know, dirt cheap compared to what it is right now. And same thing with housing. If those 3 things were driven down from the supply side, that would fix everything.
Also, the environmental argument is pretty stupid when, like you were saying, Brandon, last week, that all these electric cars, like they take so many minerals to make that the net effect on the environment isn't even positive.
Yeah.
So the whole reason why we can't unleash the full potential of America and drill for oil or use nuclear or do any of these other things is because, the environment. But then the electric solution is not actually environmentally friendly.
Exactly.
So the whole thing is just a giant scam.
Yeah, and they're using government subsidies, which is our taxpayer dollars, to siphon money from us to that industry to something they know is going to break in 10 years and not going to be a sustainable answer to what the solution they're trying to solve for.
Also, these like electric is made through gasoline, burning gasoline at factories. Like, like this is not, electricity isn't just like captured out of the air from lightning bolts.
So even Rob's not helping with that.
I'm trying. Me and Greta Thunberg, we're trying to save this planet for you fucks.
She's moved on past environment. She's on to like
Palestine,
Palestine now. She doesn't care. The world can burn for all she cares. But this, like Shane mentioned, is just how everything steadily gets worse. And they want you to forget that not only did things used to be good, but it's possible for it to be that way again. But that's why it's important to remember it.
Period.
Remember your history. Like I said, when you forget your history, it's going to happen again. Germany's forgotten what it went through, so they're doing the same thing. We're not learning from them. Future generations might not learn from us, and it will just continue to get worse. But remember that things used to be better. And there's this funny little inspirational quote that I've seen floating around. There's this whole crowd of people just say everything, it is what it is. That's just the response. When things are terrible.
It's just like wisdom.
It is what it is. Like they throw it around like that's the perfect answer. You can't change anything. And I rebuke that and say, no, it is the way it is because of the actions of others. And by our own actions, it might be different. We can turn things around, but we have to remember what we're shooting for. We have to have a vision for what we used to be and want to get back to.
On a positive note, I do think AI is going to drive down the price of a lot of these things because it's going to, take away the manual, redundant labor that nobody wants to do and like crank stuff out at a higher level than we've ever seen.
It's not going to lower the cost of food, houses, and oil.
And it's going to also put those people out of jobs.
If we use it for good.
Well, it's going to lower the cost of those things.
It'll also power the machines that transfer our heads.
Yeah.
So there's power in it.
The one thing I can tell you as we wrap up, as life becomes unaffordable, the one beauty that I find, and it's odd to come to this realization this late in life, but capitalism, is that you can go out and earn a buck. And you can figure out how to combat this on your own.
Amen.
You can pick up second gigs. You can pick up third gigs. You can reinvent yourself. Patrick talks a lot about that. I remember we had a meeting at the beginning of the year, and he said 2024 was the year he was going to reinvent himself, and he challenged all of us to reinvent ourselves. And here I find myself 6 months later in a position where I go, I need to reinvent myself to survive. Will I? Right? I'm okay. I'm okay now. But you read what you just read or hearing what you just read makes me go, hey, this is a long-term plan. And 10, 12 years ago when that was written and it was posted on social media, it was a predictor of where we're at today. So how much further and how much worse can things get? How do I prepare myself to get to be prepared for that if it comes? If it gets worse, if it gets more expensive, if the cost of living gets even more outrageous. Hopefully it doesn't. But I don't see it getting any better under Joe Biden. And I don't think if Joe Biden wins in November that it's going to get better in the next 5 years. So take this opportunity, if you have a side hustle or you can find one, to go and earn for yourself.